Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing? Welcome to What the Phuc, our first episode ever. So my name is Phuc, as you know. I'm an entrepreneur in Boston. This show is going to be a little reality show, a little startup-y, a little bit about my life, about Roberto's life, but essentially, hopefully, it's going to be a cool podcast that you guys will enjoy. So my background is I've started a bunch of companies. I went to Harvard. I grew up in Vietnam. I escaped here as a boat person in 1976. I was born and I escaped here at the age of 4 in 1980. And so I can tell you more about that and my journey. And then Roberto is a good friend of mine. We just met actually only a year ago, but we've been really good friends since then. But yeah,
For sure.
Roberto, why don't you tell me more about what you do and how you know me and what you hope to get out of this podcast?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, how's it going? My name is Roberto, and I was born in Montreal, and but I've been living a bit in different places. My parents are from Ecuadorian origin, so that's where I grew up. Actually, I went to school in Montreal, went there until I was 8, and then my parents got sick of the winter because minus 40 isn't for everybody. And then they figured, like, let's go back to Ecuador. And that's where I grew up until I was 18.
So awesome. So are you currently in Ecuador right now, or where are you right now?
No, actually, right now, I'm in Dominican Republic, in Las Terrenas.
Las Terrenas.
Which is a pretty nice... Yes, Las
That
Terrenas.
sounds very, very amazing. So is it nice there, nice weather? I'm guessing you live in
It
the
is
expat
awesome.
lifestyle. Doing
Yes.
What do you do for a living? So you don't mind.
Well, my wife and I have an awesome digital marketing agency, and just with everything that's been going on in the world for the last couple of years, we realized that we were 100% digital. So all we needed was internet, and this place has it. And we can get our independence pretty much wherever we feel like living or working is it. We just choose it and move there.
Yeah, and you know me.
Which is-
How do you know me?
Oh, I met Phuc. I met you. Phuc, like if you weren't there. Yeah, I met you a year and a half ago, I'd say.
Yeah, through your wife, Magali, right?
And
Magali, right?
yeah, through my wife. Yeah, she was working on a project with you, and then I started working on other projects with you, and we've been friends ever since.
Great. So like there's so many podcasts out there. Why do you think people
Yeah.
should listen to What the Phuc? What the Phuc? What's going on here?
Well, I feel like why should they listen to us? Because like we have like no real affiliations with anything. Like what we say is pretty much what we think about stuff. So it gives you an honest opinion, like from somebody who's not being bought or paid for by anybody. So it's straight up what we believe in, and we each have our different life experiences. So it's just honest stuff about whatever topic.
Yeah, and I think for me, I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing it for my kids, right? So I'm too lazy to write an autobiography. So just to some degree, this is my way of kind of talking to them. Well, I still remember, what happened. It's still fresh in my memory. But, I've lived an incredible life. I've lived the American dream. I came to this country with nothing, and you have achieved quite a bit so far with a lot of luck, a lot of hard work. And, one of the reasons why I want to do this is I really believe that, genius is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not, right? For example, I should be in Vietnam somewhere, poor.
How'd
on a
that go?
farm.
Like,
Yeah, so let me tell you about the story, and talking the founding story
Yes.
will engage you guys, and maybe you want to follow the future story. So the idea is, I'm going to have a little flashback, kind of talk about my childhood and how I got here, and then after that, I'm going to talk about maybe some of the stuff going on with my current company, where essentially,
Sure.
I feel like I'm about to make the American dream, and you guys can follow that journey. So instead of following the Kardashians or whatever reality show you're into, or Shark Tank, or any of those podcasts where you kind of follow people, you can actually follow someone who's living it right now, who hasn't quite made it. So if you look at my bank account, I've got like $0 in it. I've been worth quite a bit on paper, but never liquid, never able to cash in. Just like most entrepreneurs, like you try to make the dream
well,
come
it's in the
true.
process. Like,
And in the process, I think it'd be great to see it happen. I feel like it's about to happen. And I've done 5 companies in the past. So
Five.
5 companies, and 4 of them
Yeah.
were VC funded. So it's not like, hey, I called it a company. Like people actually put real money, and I've raised about $25 to $30 million total in my career from my companies.
Oh.
So legitimate,
That's-
yeah. So we, my current company is hopefully gonna make it big, and my last company will also make it big. I feel like, I have some credibility now, and can maybe some bring advice to bear. And the other thing is, I think ultimately there's a lot of people who want to come to San Francisco, to Boston, where I live, right? To New York, to Miami, to Austin, to all these areas in the U.S. or even in UK or, Western countries. And I feel like, as a minority, like I feel like I'm Vietnamese, right? So I would consider myself what's called Jungle Asian. You know what Jungle Asian is?
No.
Right. So there's like the good kind of Asian, right? Like Korean, Japanese, like Chinese, and then there are the people like Cambodia, right? Like Laos, Philippines, and like we're not so well off. We're not as modern, and I think that there's a little difference between being a Jungle Asian versus being one of those Japanese or Ukrainians, because I think it's a little bit less support. Obviously the governments aren't as stable, and I think that I think there's hope you can give for people to not have to leave the country. Like I think there are things we can do everywhere to make it big and to make the American dream, in your case Canadian dream, you're actually from Canada, right? But
yes.
but the human dream actually come true, and I think what I'd like to do is give some of my playbook if I can, give some of the inspiration, some of the stories, but also raw, actual like real data, real code, real know-how, real things you can download, you can try, and including, what I want to do is at some point is create a webinar where I can show you essentially how to build Amazon or Twitter or Facebook or whatever you want in a few weeks using the same stack that I'm using for my current companies. And so technology has gone so great that I've been around for a long time. I'm 44 right now. I'll be 45 soon. I've been coding since I was a little kid, and technology has gotten to the point where essentially it's democracy is there, but equal opportunity and capitalism isn't quite yet until technology gives it to people. And I believe that technology is starting to give it to people. Like I can build things faster. I think people can build things in Africa, in Vietnam, in Ecuador, in Quito.
It's definitely
you're doing right now in Dominican Republic, right?
Exactly. Like I feel like everything that this has done, like all this technology aspect of it, the internet and whatnot, has basically removed so many barriers that we used to have before.
Right. And
before, like if you weren't on site, that was it. Like too bad.
Yeah. And knowing that, but like there's also a certain process you go through to come to the U.S. to start a company, right? You have to apply to some type of incubator. You have to go through some process. You get investors, and there's a lot of work, a lot of hurdle. But in today's world, you don't need to do that. I mean, there are many stories. I can tell some of the stories, but also I'm living it with you right now. We're starting 2 companies. So one company we're starting is called Mass Realty. We'll talk more about that. That's the one you were helping me with, and your wife.
Yeah, for sure. That's how we started off.
And we're bootstrapping that. No investors, just us. Talented people working together, profit sharing, and never probably going to take any investment at all. I don't think we need it. I'd like to show an example of like how you can do this in any country. And in fact, if you want to copy what we do and do it for your country, I'm happy to share the playbook. Right? That's one of
for sure. Like if anybody has any questions or whatever, they can just like write down in the comments, and we'll definitely answer anything.
And the second thing is the second company. I'm actually going the VC route. So we've already fundraised quite a bit. We already have $500,000 that we fundraised, and we're going to fundraise a little bit more, and then we're going to hopefully get a couple million in the next few months. But we've done something pretty extraordinary, and hopefully we'll talk more about it. But it's called Phuc Labs. I'm not naming it after myself only. There's actually a second Phuc, believe it or not. What the Phuc? Seriously? There's 2 Phucs? Not only 2 Phucs, but 2 Phuc Trongs. How possible is that? And knowing that, but my partner, his name is Phuc Trong. Same name, same first name, same last name. His middle name is Ting, which means angel in Vietnamese. And he was one of my first checks, my first angel investor. So that's kind of a funny story. We'll talk about that at some point. But that company is, I think, going to be home run, as well as my last company called clinicalresearch.io, where I was CEO, co-founder of a company that raised, when I was there, like $3 million plus. And since I left, a couple more million, and we're really doing very well. But we basically power clinical research, a lot of it. So I would say about 20% of clinical research in the U.S. is using us, including for COVID. So that's I'm very proud of that.
It's still happening.
Super proud of that. I coded a lot of that product. I helped run that company for a long time, and make it very successful. And hopefully that will be my my first win. We'll see. But anyway, let's go back. Let's go back in time a little bit, right?
Yeah, let's start at the beginning.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question.
Yes.
if you were born Phuc, right? Just think about it right now.
Yes.
How would your life be different?
If I were born Phuc, like just the name, or
Yeah,
like the
you
whole
lived in
situation?
America, and like people are like, oh yeah, whatever. You know what it means. So fuck is not a swear in Vietnamese. So it's
Well,
actually
it'd be
But-
you'd have interesting parents if it actually
so
were though.
fuck. I'm a Vietnamese. I'm fluent, pretty fluent, I would say. So fuck, Phat, spelled Phat, with a period at the bottom, is actually the word for Buddha. So you said "Ayi da fuck," it means "May Buddha bless you." So fuck,
Okay.
fuck is Buddha. It's like saying Jesus.
I think I'm gonna have to bleep on.
You can't beep it. It's basically not what's it called? Ethnically sensitive to censor fuck, because it means
Yes.
a religious thing.
Yeah, no, I
so
think the
obviously
intent is the same.
cancel culture can't get us this time, but
Yes.
maybe next time when we do something inappropriate. So I mean, let me ask you, like, honestly, would you be like, I would say, would you be more angry person, less angry of a person, let's say?
I feel that like the kind of person I am, I would have just leaned into it and see how it went.
So you would have been the one that embraced Phuc, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think your
go all
nickname
of it.
would have been?
This is
What do you think the different names could have been for you?
they're like the mother Phucer.
Mother Phuca. All right. What do you think my nickname was? What do you think people would?
I don't know actually. Like I've never encountered anybody like with this name.
Really?
Like I have no Vietnamese people around me or anything.
Look it up. It's like the John Smith of Vietnamese, right? So,
Okay.
So Trung is actually a very common last name. It's actually the Smith.
Okay.
It's like the Smith of Vietnamese, right? And actually, you spell it Cheung in Chinese, right? And I'm actually half Chinese biologically because my dad was born in Vietnam to Chinese parents
Okay.
who were born in China.
Yeah.
But so I'm actually, my mom was Vietnamese fully. So basically, Phuc is the word for lucky, right?
Oh, nice.
So when my last name is actually Trung, my middle name is Yin or Vin, right? And Vin means forever. So forever lucky is actually my name.
That is a very nice combination of words.
Right. And I'm not sure if it helped me with girls or not. So that's the second question. What do you think? Do you think it helped you with girls? Did you have do you think you would have a better time with women and dating and all that?
Yeah, I feel like at some point, yes, at the beginning it might have been like hard, but then like after you lean into it and you start living it and you put like a face and an attitude to your name, it really goes on from there.
Right. Well, let's see what happens. So let's pretend to be me. All right, I'll go through my journey and we'll talk about my life, and then what we can do is we can also have audience participation. What does that mean? That means I'm going to ask the audience to chase
Like,
some of these dreams with me, and they can participate by doing some cool stuff. I'm about to propose, but we'll propose at the end of the podcast. A little hint. But yeah, so you think you're a little bit better, right? What about your sense of humor? Obviously, you'd be really good, right?
yeah, no, definitely. Like everything would be a joke now. Like
Honestly.
that's how it is.
What do you
Yes.
think? What first words came into your mind when you first?
I wasn't sure how to pronounce
when
it
you
at the
first,
beginning. I was like,
when you first
"Oh,
met me. Come on, honest, subconsciously. There's got to be some words. that
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out.
no, honestly. I'm gonna hear him say his name first, and then I'll take it from there.
Right. So it's
And
like the
then-
awkward. Like let's defer the pronunciation.
And it does definitely like it starts you off on a certain foot. Let's say, like if your name like Phuc, and chances are like all this stuff has happened to you like throughout your entire life, so you've heard like all the variants of it. I'm guessing. So then you're kind of like free after a certain extent. Like everything has been said. So like everything has been said. Everything has been done. Like what are you gonna come out at this point in your life to be like, okay, how are you gonna make fun of it now? Like that I haven't
so
heard.
The underdog story, right? The underdog pathos that what can you do to me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess a bad luck.
Like go ahead, like try to do, and it would even be like a nice like test to have somebody make fun of me or my name in a different way that I haven't heard.
Mm-hmm.
It would be hilarious. I'd be like, okay, and if you said the same thing that everybody else has said, then I feel like you would start off like being as average as everybody, all the other people that I've encountered.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That if you actually come up with something new, I'd be like, huh, like I'll pay attention to you and see what's up.
Yeah, and you know, if I become a pop star, they can call me like Cher. You know, instead of Cher, I'll be Phuc.
Exactly,
There's,
just
there's
one
advantage,
thing.
you know. So let's start with the Phuc story, and then we'll go
Go
to your
ahead.
story, right? So my story is pretty
It sounds,
interesting.
it sounds
Uh,
interesting.
So I was basically, you know, born in 1976 during the fall of Saigon, basically, right? So basically the year that Saigon fell, just like Afghanistan. So we're recording this September 8th, 2021, and Afghanistan just fell, basically to the Taliban, the same way that, you know, Saigon fell. And basically I was born on the wrong side of history. My parents were teachers. My dad was actually a principal at his school, and he actually met my mom. You know, they got married, and he was actually in the South Vietnamese Army. So the worst place you can be. You're basically on the wrong side of it's like being an interpreter for the Afghanistan Army, you know, during the occupation. And so
Okay, he was
yeah,
in the army.
yeah. So some people,
What rank?
you know, he really didn't want to talk about it. You know,
Okay.
it's one of those things where, you know, war. There's some things I think, you know, he didn't talk about. I'd never prodded him too much, and I, you know, well, let's just talk about. We have enough drama, but let me tell you
Let's
about
do
some of
it.
the drama that happened. So you know, I was born with my older brother was born a little bit before me in 1974, 2 years ahead of me, and I had a younger brother. His name is Locke. He's 2 years younger than me, and my older brother, his name is Hong, and he's 2 years older than me. So we're basically 3 years apart, with me being the middle child. And you know, the thing that happens, and this is probably gonna happen in Afghanistan too, is, you know, once you're on the wrong side of history and the other side takes over, you essentially get blacklisted, right? And not just blacklisted, but, you know, the stuff that happens already, you know, land repossession and, you know, basically the spoils of war divided. You get to be one of the victims of, you know, your land being taken, or your rights, or your ability to you know, make a living, or to even have, you know, a future for your kids. So I mean, for a lot of people who had visas, like right now in Afghanistan, they're leaving, right? Just like some of the people who got in those helicopters in Vietnam, you know, many people were just left behind. Just like many people, you know, millions of people are left in Afghanistan right now. And, you know, we basically had to find a way out. Just like many people are trying to find a way out right now, and, you know, they're cutting off the flights, you know, and
It's rough.
Yeah, and there's only a couple ways out of Vietnam. You gotta take a boat, right? You gotta take a boat.
Okay.
It's a tiny boat, basically the size of like a regular bedroom. You got like 30 people, 40 people, and you basically have to try to escape to Thailand or the Philippines, or some type of, you know, nation that's willing to take you.
Would they turn you in? Let's say, like, just out of international politics, would they have to, like, send you back?
That's the crapshoot, right? So it depends where they catch
Okay.
you, depends who it is. But I'll talk about the story, because we did go through that journey, and I'll talk about what happens to some of the people in that journey. But yeah, so, you know, the war had, you know, ended. You know, we were on the wrong side of history, and so we were in the south. We grew up in south of Saigon. I'm not gonna go Ho Chi Minh City. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like saying, you know, it's like saying like Stalingrad or something, or Leningrad, you know, after, you know, after they took over, or whatever, right? So the idea is, you know, we lived, you know, in a small village south of Saigon, but you know, there are people who would sponsor these basic escape trips, and you basically had to give them money, and they would have a night where you would have to come, and you get on a boat, you stay really quiet, and you try to escape from essentially the bay into the deep ocean, so you can head your way into Thailand, right?
Okay.
So these boats are not meant for the deep ocean. They're basically river boats, right? Meant for fishing, meant for basically, you know, a couple miles out the ocean. That's it. Not rough storm. So if you know you hit a rough storm, you're done. So you have like a week or so that you have to try to go across the ocean, right? Maybe 2
Okay, it
weeks.
takes a week.
Yeah, a long time. And then you have a motor, and it's just a regular motor from, you know, the river boat, and you basically stay quiet. You hide. You do it in the dead of the night. And despite that, right? So the way my mom and dad actually made money was they sold fertilizer. They would buy fertilizer from Saigon or somewhere, some big city that they sell, and that's how they made money, because, you know, they couldn't teach anymore. You know, he couldn't work. You know, all this other stuff. So we basically sold everything we had, and then we got caught. So basically we went one night. I don't remember it, right? Because I'm too young. I'm 4 years old. and we go to jail. And I was in jail for a week with my parents. And
How far along had they gotten though?
I mean, and probably just the bay, just like, I think they had patrols at night because they didn't want people to leave. They didn't want the brain drain.
Yeah.
They didn't want, a bad reputation. They didn't want people to leave that are, potentially people that they didn't like. So at the end, we were there for like a week or so, maybe more, for the kids and my mom. And my dad was there for a long time. He was there for several weeks, maybe a few months, I believe. And this is actually my essay to go to Harvard. So the prisoner there is like, hey, you're such a coward, man. What's going on here? Like, you're escaping just like all the other cowards, and he's like, I have a family, man. I fought for the war. Yeah, I fought for our country. I'm a patriot. And one of these days, I can't do anything for these kids here. Like, they have no future. They can't go to school. They can't make a living. They can't really be anyone. But if we go to America, one day, maybe one of these kids will come back and do something great for our country. And that's the best I can do at this point. And it's
crazy though how people like just start judging others. Like, you're not in their situation. You don't have like the same, like that much skin in the game as somebody who has kids. You have a responsibility towards them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for them,
and I think my dad did the right thing, but that haunted me. That story that he told, because I'm like, so basically, not only did you try once, you failed terribly. You got caught, and you didn't give up, and you went back and selling fertilizer, and did it again like shortly thereafter, right? You just and the odds of making it very low. Getting caught is very high, and if you don't get caught, you might die from the ocean and from the pirates. So basically, what happens? We went back. He got out of jail. We tried. My mom's great. She did what she had to do to keep us, and obviously the support of our relatives and all that. But we tried a second time, and we made it. But this time it wasn't quite. It's not what you think. It's not easy, right? So you make it out, and the first thing that happens is you get invaded by pirates, right? So the Thai pirates, and what they do is they know that people are escaping Vietnam with money. You've got gold, you've got whatever cash you have assets.
Something to trade.
Yeah, no, the first thing they do is just take it all. I mean, there's no trading. I mean, what would you trade for, right? They take it all, and then they're like, okay, good, you guys can head out, whatever. Obviously it sucks. And then there'll be people who would hide their gold. So I'm not sure if they happened to my boat or not, but my mom would tell me stories, later on, that people would hide gold in their butt, for example, right? And then once they found out, the pirates found out they were hiding gold in their butt and stuff, and all that, because they know all the tricks, right? You've seen this a billion times.
Yes.
They'll basically punish them by leaving them on a desert island to basically die, because you lied to the pirates, you hid your treasure, so they're just gonna drop you off and just, good luck, hopefully you live, but you're probably gonna die.
It's crazy, right? Human nature, like that. Like, seriously, you see people in trouble, and the first thing you want to do is try to profit off of them.
And now the next pirate comes. It's like, where's your money? It's all gone. So what's next? Your motor. Take your motor, right?
They just leave you in the water.
Yeah, and you take the wood from the side of the boats and start basically seeing if you can paddle your way to Thailand or to shore or something, just to make sure you don't die.
How far is it?
You can look it up on the map. It's a couple hundred miles. Like I said, it's a week. So then then the fourth comes, and then you try to chase them down. They know you don't have any money. They know you don't have any motor, and you're running out of water, right? So they don't want to stop and give you water. It's like a homeless person in San Francisco or Boston or wherever, New York, is not your problem, right? So we went a couple of days without water. My younger brother, Locke, I was 4, almost 5. He was only 2, and he was so thirsty he drank seawater, and he almost died, for real.
But yeah, well, that's not good.
So yeah, I mean, I should be in the bottom of the ocean dead somewhere with a lot of people from Vietnam, and my brother got lucky. He made it. We made it. We were rescued by eventually made to Thailand by the Thai Coast Guard. They're not the Thai pirates. We were sent to a refugee camp with tens of thousands of other, maybe hundreds of thousands of other refugees in Thailand. And I have pictures I can show you, and then maybe I can show you some pictures and that you can put on the podcast here.
For sure.
So it was just actually me, my immediate family, and actually my cousin, Mint. Right. And so there's other people.
He was mixed in with you
Yeah,
guys?
so he just went in.
Okay.
He was only, I think he was only 15 or 16, very young. And he came first, and he was gonna sponsor his family over once he made it. Just like many stories, like, you know, you
Okay.
come work, you make money, you send home money, and then you make it, and then you send, you know, your parents over or whatever. And eventually he did do that with a lot of, you know, other Vietnamese people. And you know, we were so lucky because we could have been there a long time, but we were there for just only 6 months in that refugee camp. And
Still a while, 6 months.
yeah, but you know, people in the Philippines, people in Thailand, 15 years, 10 years is not uncommon, and you never get sponsored. You basically, there are people who have probably become naturalized Filipinos because they're in the Filipino refugee camp for like so long. And the reason we got a quick sponsorship was because of all people, a church group, you know, Christian church group sponsored us. They saw the plight of our family and how my dad was a war vet for the South Vietnamese Army, right, for the wrong side. You know, he was a principal, he was educated. My mom was a teacher. You know, we're really good, you know, role models for potentially, you know, immigrants, you know, that they want to take, you know, and they also obviously want to help, you know, society and maybe convert us. You know, there's obviously some little Christian action there, which I appreciate because, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, they gave us hope, and they gave us the American dream and a chance at the American dream. I'll never forget that. You know, and I remember still, you know, when I came to this country, you know, we were poor. We had nothing. There's something called Section 8. You may have heard of it. Section 8 is like an American program to let you basically live rent-free, and they'll help you kind of transition to you know, becoming a citizen and, you know, becoming a member of society. And I remember we had a room. There's one room, one bed for 5 of us in a 3-decker, three family in Dorchester. And you know, when we're growing up, you know, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of racism.
Okay, by then, but
Yeah.
you already be like, they got brought in to the States, though.
Yeah, but you know what? We hit the lottery, right? Because Vietnam was worse. Afghanistan
Yeah, no,
was
definitely.
worse. Many parts of the world is way worse. And I never understood how this would happen. But you know, when you're poor in Vietnam, you're starving, you have no money, you have no hope, you have no anything. You're skinny, and you're like, you know, maybe you starve to death in North Korea, right? Or in, you know, in like bad times during, you know, during the Cultural Revolution in China, for example, like, you know, millions of people starved to death. But you look at the homeless people, and you look at the poor people in America. Not to be, you know, insensitive, but like from an immigrant point of view, oh my God, we hit the lottery. Everyone here is fat. The poor people can eat like 99-cent Whoppers, $1, you know, whatever, Happy Meal. Back then it was really cheap, and like literally like it was like everyone here was living the dream, even though you were poor. So I think that's a perspective I think a lot of people don't understand. Like when you come here, right, you think immigrants have it bad. We have it great. It's a great country. America is the greatest country in the world. And America is great because of a couple of things, right? One is they let anybody in who's willing to work hard, who's willing to believe in freedom and the American way, and trying to basically make it for their family, and do it in a way, you know, that helps society and helps the world. I think Americans are really good people, right? And I think the school system is also very good, because everywhere else in the world, everything is based on meritocracy. Like, how good are you? What test scores did you have? But I got into, you know, I worked really hard. I almost got lucky, but I wasn't the best student. Affirmative action definitely helped me. You know, like I didn't have the best grades of everyone, but I had the most guts, I would say. I had to overcome a lot more. In America, that means something. It means that you get the chance that maybe one day you remember where you came from, and you do podcasts like this, right? And you donate to your neighborhood. You make a difference. You invent something that's going to make a big deal, and you do something that is worth the investment that America has made. And I want to show that.
If I want to play like
right.
If I want to play devil's advocate, like, doesn't it make sense though, like to invest if you have limited resources, like in the other countries that you go, like Vietnam or like all the other ones? Wouldn't it make sense to like just invest in the ones that are you feel are worth it for you?
You're talking about from the country's point of view.
Yeah, like for the meritocracy and all the whole like
Yeah.
educational system.
So that's the great thing. Like, who is an American? What's the definition of an American? Right? Is it a white person? Is it a Latino person? Latinos are growing. You know, is it
No,
African
definitely.
American? You know, is because they do a lot of the culture. Right? They drive a lot of the pop culture, the hip hop culture. You know, the entertainment culture, the sports culture, and you know, every immigrant class, right? Every type of race, every immigrant contributes something special from their home country or from their home culture, right? I mean, people say that Asians are nerdy and we know computers. Maybe it's a little bit true because I'm pretty good at computers, and maybe you know black people are good at sports, and maybe that is a little bit true, right? But together, right, we're one country that's really good at everything, and we can learn a lot from our faults, and we can cover the faults, and we can also argue and yell and like Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. It's healthy, man. I see that as freedom. And people see that as a distraction, as noise, as something bad, as American falling apart. I see that American getting stronger. I see that the opposite of what people see. They see like all this stuff, cancel culture, all this stuff. There's some bad stuff here and there, but we're talking, man. We're not going to jail. We're not, you know, opportunities are in front of us if we want to grab it. And you know, if you look at other people who are in the U.S. who make it, half of the entrepreneurs are immigrants, you know, and you know, there's a lot of work to be done, right? For example, like, you know, Asian people, we're great at coding, we're great, you know, VPs for you guys, but how about CEO? Right? How about, you know, being in charge? Doesn't happen quite as often, right?
That's
Same
the
thing with
issue.
women, right? You know.
Yeah, that's the issue right now, actually. Well,
Latinos too.
Right now. Like everybody, like you do great and everything, but
that's see the thing is,
feel-
I don't think that people minorities, they don't understand. It's not about the unfairness. It's just about time, right? Let's say the Vietnamese, the Vietnamese community, who I can speak for because I'm Vietnamese. You know, we didn't really come en masse to the U.S. until the 80s, right? The 70s, the 80s, and maybe the 90s, right? But how long does it take for one generation to make it big? Probably like, you know, 20 years, 30 years. And now you're starting to see that. You're starting to see CEOs. You know, some of my friends are CEOs of companies. Republic, for example, that's a startup that does crowdfunding, right? Ken Wing, I think, right? Sonny Vaugh, a friend of mine, he does 3D printing for a biking company, right? He does a bike that I bought on Indiegogo, and you know, and there are people in Vietnam, there are people everywhere, you know, making a name for themselves because it takes time to incubate. And just because you don't see the faces, that doesn't mean it wasn't a fair process. It just means sometimes it isn't a fair process at the beginning, obviously. You have to break the ceiling, you have to break whatever the barrier. But ultimately, you know, if there's enough of you trying really hard and you prove your worth, America embraces you, right? They embrace the Irish, they embrace the Italians, they embrace Vietnamese people. Like, look at pho shops everywhere. You know, for sure.
Yeah, because they were useful.
Banh mi. Yeah, right. But but you can name that about everything. Cuban sandwiches, you know, Latin music, you know, all that stuff. And I think people don't see the greatness in the argument. The fact we can argue it all.
And that's definitely something that people take for granted. Like, I don't remember who said it, but it was that they might not agree what we are saying, like with what the opinion you have, but they will defend your right to say it.
Right, and like, there's only two ways you can behave. Like, let's say your name Phuc, right? Someone picks you on you, your name is Phuc, or you're black, or you're Latino, or you're Vietnamese. There are two ways you can approach it. One is you can be angry. You can attack them. You can fight back. You can yell, or you can be productive and just like turn the other cheek, like Jesus, right? Like, I was actually in the Salvation Army, believe it or not, for a long time, because that's how we got free Sunday babysitting, a lot of free stuff from the Salvation Army. I donate to the Salvation Army as much as I can when I can. It's one of the greatest organizations in the world, right? Because what it does is it's an army of people who believe in something. Obviously, they believe in converting people to Christianity, but along the way, they feed people, they educate people, they make people, you know, want to be Christian, right?
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. Do you want to be in some of these countries right now? Do you want to be North Korea?
No, actually, I do not.
Do you want to live in maybe China, right? CCP,
And China, no.
right?
Like I would like to. I'd love to visit it. It looks amazing. Like
Right.
there's like it's so vast.
But
But actually live there, I don't think so.
but it's not equal, right? You think that every country is the same, but it's not. Like some companies, we see if you have put 5 people who don't agree with each other, what do you think they're going to do in a room? Like they're different races,
If they-
different ethnicity. They're probably going to
Mhm.
argue it out a little bit. But what's the hope that they do?
Yeah, no, at some point they will find some common ground.
And you think those 5 people are stronger than 5 people who look the same?
Well, they already have the common ground, so then they start looking for other stuff.
Right? Because you have variety, right? And we'll talk about that. We'll
Mhm.
talk about some of the science theories I have. We'll talk about some of the deep spiritual ideas. We'll even talk about UFOs and UAPs.
Let's do
We'll
it.
talk about that, a little bit teaser there. But yeah, let's continue the story about my childhood, and maybe go to your childhood a bit, Roberto. So basically, I came to this country.
Yeah.
We lived in Boston. It was one of those crazy childhoods where like you're learning English, you're trying to understand the culture, you're trying to fit in, my parents had to go to community college to try to make a living. They couldn't teach, obviously, so they eventually tried to do electronics technician work. But let me give you some crazy stories. I can tell you more crazy stories, in other podcasts. Let me give you some crazy outlier stories. So one story is, and I knew I was good at computers. Let's just talk about that.
Okay.
So around 4th grade, I was in advanced class at the Murphy School in Dorchester. So Dorchester is kind of the hood in Boston, but this advanced program is very good. And we were basically taught something called Logo, Logo. It was a computer program that taught kids how to program, essentially, right? And the program was essentially a turtle. It was basically a triangle. It looked like a turtle, where you'd say go straight, 5 pixels, turn right, 90 degrees, use this color, go straight 5 pixels, 10 pixels, whatever. And you essentially can draw by writing a series of programmatic instructions, right? And so we had to join this computer contest, and out of tens of thousands of, thousands of students, I was number 1. Won the entire city contest. And I still remember to
Oh,
this
wow.
day, I was really proud of it. So I spent, quite a bit of time of it, but I basically made a King Arthur-like castle with birds and trees and a moat and,
The whole thing.
Yeah,
The whole
sun,
deal.
and then if you stop, because the way they actually judge it's pretty cool. They hit play, and you essentially see this thing draw in front of you, right?
Okay.
You gotta use geometry. You gotta use cosine, sines, all the math. Show creativity, show that you can actually fill in things at the right coordinates, and like when you see it draw, it surprises you, right? About like what it's gonna be, and I think my thing was really cool because I showed all elements. And I was just really naturally good. But I remember my dad had bought me a bunch of books how to write video games. I remember back then that the Atari, the Commodore, and the way you actually load a program was really cool. Do you know what a tape cassette is?
Yes.
So a tape.
I'm not that young.
So you know what a fax is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you imagine the way you load a program or you write a program is you would actually hit record on your tape recorder, and your computer
Okay.
would go like a fax machine.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
to load a program, you would have to hit play and then hit load on your computer to basically load the sound into the computer. So that was like way back when, and then they went to floppy, then they went to CD, and then DVD and USB and wireless and all that stuff. But yeah, way back when, and I was pretty good at it. And so my 4th grade teacher, Mr. Connolly, I still remember him. Thank you, Mr. Connolly. He I was a really good student. I was very shy. I'm not who I am right now. My son's actually very much like me, because you come to this country and you don't know anyone. You're pretty I'm kind of introverted already, but I'm kind of shy. But he's like, Phuc should go to this school called Roxbury Latin, right? And he told my mom, you should apply when he gets to 7th grade. And I'll write a recommendation, but he's a little special. He's gonna go somewhere, right? Go places. And I still remember that because that set me off to go to Roxbury Latin, right? I could have gone to a magnet school here called Boston Land, where you test into, But I went to one of the most elite private schools in the entire country. It's called Roxbury Latin. It was the first, essentially, high school in the U.S. Right, Boston Latin and Roxbury, they were the first two. But apparently, Roxbury Latin, we were open continuously longer than Boston Latin, because Boston Latin, there was a fire and they shut down for a couple years, a couple months, whatever. So they weren't open, so it didn't count. So.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so you imagine the elite private school education. I got for like $800 a year, scholarships from the William Hurst Foundation. William Hurst is one of the philanthropists who donated for scholarships at my school, and even the tuition wasn't that bad for the people who had to pay. It was like $8,000 a year, but it was really good. I mean, my entire school, my grade was 43 kids, and 43 boys, all boys, and half of us got to Ivy Leagues, and 10 of us got into Harvard. So 25% of the class got into Harvard, and more than 50% of the class went to Ivy Leagues, like Duke, Yale, Stanford, Princeton, and my GPA was a B+. Right?
Huh.
And the valedictorian, his GPA was an A-. So a B+ was, you were top 10. Right? So this was really, really hard. It was harder than Harvard. I didn't have to work at Harvard at all. I mean, after Roxbury Latin, you had sports. You wake up at 7. I would deliver newspapers, by the way, at 5 a.m. Right? Because I had to get the Boston Globe. I tried to get the scholarship for the newspaper delivery, right? And then you basically go to school at 7. You do pretty much college level work, and then you do sports. And you come home at like 7 or 6 or 7, and they had this bus for all the minorities. So basically, minorities from Mattapan, from Dorchester, from Roxbury, Black, Vietnamese, Chinese. It was really, really great, because they try to give the education to everyone, right, and also give that diversity. But you can also see, with 43 kids, most of them being white, privileged, not their fault. Some of them are actually middle class, so not that rich either. But you're from a different country, and you're the only Vietnamese person in the entire school, right? And maybe your class has 2 Asian people total, but it's a small class anyway, right? So it's not even their fault, right? It's just like, what are you gonna do, right? You're not gonna have like 100 of these people, but it was a great education. I did not have girlfriends or anything. I had to study the whole time, because I was introvert. Unlike you, Roberto, with your tattoos, I'd love to hear about your childhood. But so then I did really well. I tried my best. I was on the wrestling team for 6 years. I was pretty good at most things, but I wasn't the best. And here's the message for you, right? I was pretty good at everything, but never the best at anything special. I never won like science prize, math prize, whatever. I did get really good scores in my SATs and APs and all that stuff, right? But I was never the best at anything. And I think that's a lesson for you, right? You just have to keep learning, keep getting better, and basically try to become like a Renaissance man. Like, for me, I've won the lottery already, right? The moral of the lesson is I should be in the middle of the ocean dead somewhere. My brother should have drank seawater and died. We should have got caught by pirates, and they should have cut our throats and fed us to the sharks. We could have been stuck in Thailand for 10 years. I could have come here and never had the opportunity, because I was too old, because I was 15, I couldn't learn English, right? Or my parents, who couldn't get a profession except something that they had to do, because that's the only thing they could do, right, easily. And they get laid off because the companies wouldn't do well. And I remember, what, if I can just make 100K, if I can just get a job somewhere and own a house, that'll be like cherry on top, because I felt like I already won the lottery. And I think a lot of immigrants feel that way, right? I don't think a lot of Americans hear that from immigrants enough, right? That like, it feels like immigrants are having a rough time, and some of them are, but a lot of them also are very thankful, and a lot of them will start to give back, and a lot of them are giving back. And I think America just has to continue to do what it's doing, but do more of it, not less of it. Don't worry about this country breaking apart. That's what happens when you have more people in your party, right? It's going to be a little rough, but the party is going to be great. It's going to be awesome. And, you know, I think what happens is people think that politics is the answer, right? I believe technology is the answer. I believe people, grassroots, understanding each other. Because my parents were, you know, the same as Donald Trump, the same as anyone at that generation. You know, they're going to be a little racist, right? They're going to have a little bias. I'm a little bit better. My kid's going to be a lot better. Their kids can get a lot better.
Yeah. It's a slow rolling ball, but it is rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, and so that's the origin story. I got into Harvard. I applied early. I got super lucky. I got in, and you know, ever since, you know, I used the best of my opportunities. And I would say the main thing, I just want to reiterate this: if you apply to a college, let's say you know, in another country, right? They can take your scores. And maybe they'll take your personal story about how you escaped Vietnam, how your dad, you know, was a patriot and wanted his kids to have a good education, so one day one of them could come back and help the country, right? And you see, and you live it, and you see people bash America, right? Even today, right? I want to stand up for America. And I also want to prove the American dream is still alive. And I like to export the American dream. I like to export entrepreneurship and startups, and you don't have to escape Vietnam, right? You can be in the Dominican Republic. Let's talk about you, Roberto. So tell me about you and your story, how you got here. Yeah, and because you live a badass lifestyle. Like, everybody wants to quit their job and move to the beach and like work somewhere and, you know, get paid a lot of money and, you know, work with startups and, you know, meet cool people and raise a family. And we both have families, by the way. I have 3 kids, a 12-year-old daughter, a 10-year-old son, and a 9-year-old daughter. Beautiful kids. I have them come on the podcast at some point. But yeah, I'd love to hear about you and your family. And
yeah, no, for sure. Well, starting off, like I'm 36 now. I have a daughter that's turning 12 Friday. Actually, yeah, we're setting up kind of the stuff. There's gonna be a small party here, like birthday with some of her friends, on Saturday. So she's super excited about that. And yeah, we moved here to Las Terrenas in Dominican Republic. What is it today? The 8th. We've been here for 2 months and 5 days. And it's awesome. Everything is just like way different than how we had it before and how the entire system that we lived in was based on. It's changed so much, and you realize how much time you used to waste in just like random dumb things, like traffic, like actually physically moving to we used to work in Ecuador before this. We lived in Ecuador for 8 years, like my wife and my daughter, and things just functioned in a different way. And then after this very interesting year and a half we've been having, that's been harder for others and hard for some of us. And then it's not all bad all the time. Like, yes, there's been different hardships and different situations for everybody, but I've always tried to see like the silver linings in things, and like something that has to come from this. And it did give us some sort of freedom. Let's say us, I mean, like exactly like my family per se. It's now we know that we don't have to go to meetings. We don't have to be sitting with you in the room for the work to get done. And now even this podcast, like I would have never gotten on podcasts and actually talk with people. Like, man, I'm an animator. Like, I work in animation. Like, I'm happy in my corner in my computer and animating my stuff on my own. And now to actually like be with people in meetings and just through Zoom and that, it's something that you grow into. And this last year and a half has been one of learning and figuring things out and self-discovery, if anything. But just like to start off from the beginning. Like, I was born in Montreal, in Canada, in the Jewish hospital, actually, in Côte des Neiges. And from there, like, how did you get there? Like, yes, my mom she moved to Canada. She moved to Canada there because they had an exporting business from Ecuador to Montreal specifically. And then they would go like to the CNE in Toronto and all these other places where they have like all these bigger events and bigger venues. And that's how I started off. Like her older brother, I have 10 uncles and aunts. Because I don't know, my grandparents didn't have TV, I'm guessing, and radio wasn't that fun. So there you go, 11 kids. And then after that, like the older ones, one of them went to Canada. And he figured, like, okay, let's do this. And he started bringing over stuff like from Ecuador, like all the ponchos, big wooden statues, all these, everything you could get in Ecuador was brand new in Canada. I'm talking maybe like what, like 60 years ago, 50 years ago. And so they, like, people just didn't have access to any of these things. You lived in your country, and that was pretty much it. Like, what was around is what became part of your everyday life. Like, you can just, right now you can go like Simon's and go like, oh, I want a poncho, I want a pashmina, I want a this, and it's like super nicely knit and everything before that. Like, it was all handmade. It was just like one lady or this village here in, well, there in Ecuador, it's called Otavalo, that they have like these beautiful, all they do is beautiful, actually. They work jewelry, they do clothes, they do, there's a village like right next to it, San Antonio, that has like all the woodworks, all the wooden statues. And he took all that to Canada. And then after he enjoyed it, like he had his business, he figured, okay, like next step, okay, I'm working out, I'm very self-sufficient now, let's help out the rest of the family. And so he offered to bring over like some of his brothers and sisters. Some of them stuck around. Some of them were like, nope, like Canada is not for me, because like it is way different than Ecuador, like just weather-wise. In Ecuador, it's like, you know, it's center, like right in the middle of the planet, so it's never snows. Well, now like recently with like some climate change stuff, it's been like grailing. But other than that, like it's pretty straightforward. Like you go there. You have like the standard lifestyle would be like you go to school, high school, university, and then you get married, have your kids, buy a dog, get a house, die.
And that was
so
it.
that was it. Like that was it. Like imagine like 60 years ago. It's like what are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go? You're gonna go to the beach. It took you like 5 hours to get to the beach. Not because it was far, because like Quito, like was where I live, is high up in the mountains. The thing is, if I'm not, it's like 2,800 meters up. So to get to the like I think the closest beach is like 4 hours and a half away. So it's not far. It's just like the way to get there is you have to go through the mountains and hit the valley, and then you get onto the beach stretch. So, and that was it. Like even my parents, like my dad, he's only been to the beach when he was doing his military service. When he was doing his military service, which is like 30, 40, like 40 years ago. And that was it. He hasn't been since, just because like he doesn't want to travel. I've been trying to get him to like come here to DR, but he's really been pushing it. They're like, oh, we'll talk about it later. And yeah, so then my uncle started doing all these things over there, brought over some of his brothers and sisters, and some of them stayed, and my mom was one of them. They had she was one of the oldest ones of like the 11, and they had a great relationship. And at some point, he kind of like passed on the torch and sold her the business. Then she bought it and started working it, and that was it. Then she met my dad in Montreal as well, and then I popped up. So we lived there for a while until I was about 8 years old, and then they wanted to go back. Like, okay, what? Like, we've done our time here. Like, it's fun. It's been nice and everything, but I think like I want to have the family a bit closer and everything. So they went back.
Cool.
And like when you're 8 years old, you can't really be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna stick around. Like, get on the plane, and yeah, and that's it. And like so we went back, and then once I went over there, we went to school. It was a Catholic school.
So you in Canada until what age?
8.
And then you went back.
Until I 8 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in. I studied until 3rd grade in l'Académie Michel Provost in Montreal. It was a nice private school. Like I found out like later. Like when you're a kid, you don't care. You just go to school until I put this on, and that's it. And then after, like in retrospect, I was like, I had a uniform. And so I Googled it, and it was actually a pretty good school, so that was fun. And then in Ecuador, like pretty much most of the better schools are private. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the system. Like South America in general is not great on public schools or public anything for that matter. So over there, I went to there was this Catholic school. Well, Catholic. It doesn't really count as Catholic because there's no priests that actually teach class, but they're always around. It's El Colegio Intisana, and it's a Catholic school in the sense that it's run by the Opus Dei, and I graduated from there until I was from third grade until secondary 6. It was a great school. I know a bunch of my classmates really hated it. First it was only boys.
Oh, so you went to the all boys school too then?
An all boys school, yeah.
Okay, how big was your school?
It was pretty big. I don't know. There were let's say in my year there was about 25 to 30 of us per class. There were 3 classes, 3 what do I call these parallels, A, B, and C of each one. So it's 100, maybe 800, 900 people.
Yeah, my grade was 43, so yeah, you're probably 3 times as big, maybe more.
Yeah, I know. So, and it was a good. The place was nice. They had some good. Some good structures. They had the Coliseum for basketball. They even had a hockey, rollerblade hockey. They had a stadium at the top of the school and everything. And it got fun. I had fun. It was an interesting time that a lot of I'm telling one of my classmates really hated it. Some really loved it. Some are still there. Actually, they graduated and they went back to work at school. Mm-hmm. And then it's just different experiences. And I feel that each one, let's say, my teachers was really interesting, except a couple of them that really had no business teaching. I hate chemistry because of this one dude. But other than that,
would you send your kids to a private all boys school? Or
I actually would.
Or you would?
Yeah, I loved it. My wife really is against it because it's not natural. I get it, but I mean I built some very strong relationships with everybody in my class, and in the other classes. And out of let's say the 75 of us that graduated, I could pick up the phone right now and call any one of them, at random, and they will answer. And if I need something, they will show up.
That's a good feeling.
Which is it's a nice bond that everybody creates. And yes, maybe it might not have been now they call it bullying. Before it was we're forging character, and it was just a relationship we had. It was there was nobody to impress. There was something a bunch of people say oh, there should have been girls. It's more natural. There's always around the interaction. And I do agree up to a certain extent, but then the relationship that were built would not have been as strong had there been this other aspect of life.
Yeah. Which
it hits you when you're 15 or 14. Then you're I feel like something's missing around here. But other than that, you're it's just you hang out with your friends, and then you go to class, and then you get out of class and you hang out with your friends again.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wouldn't do it for my kids just because I really think that the social aspects. I agree with you. It's very important.
It does play.
Although I could see that some people would like it, and you would do very well in that setting, and I did well in that setting. So it wasn't the education. I think it was the social side. I think you can have both. I think I'm a greedy. Yeah,
it's definitely not for everybody.
Yeah, I'm greedy, and also I think at the same time, I have 2 girls,
mm-hmm.
and having, most of the education for men are great, but not many all girls schools, and I feel all boys, there's a little bit of a bias, I guess. Obviously, women, right, giving them the same opportunities, and obviously it's not fair to say that because sometimes a boy's education is something that is personal, right? It has nothing to do with whether it's fair or not. But at the same time, I'd love to have my daughters go to the same school as my son, and I think they're the same age or close to the same age. So I'd love to have that experience for them, and that's just a personal choice, and I can see why. But let's move on. Let's move on to some. The audience is probably sick of hearing our boring life stories. Hopefully not too boring.
Yes.
But what's currently going on is pretty interesting. So what are you doing with Mass Realty? Can you tell me more about Mass Realty and what we're doing there? So it's a startup.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a startup that so basically. So please like and subscribe. And anything else?
If you have any questions, if you have any questions, just write them in the comments, and we will definitely try to answer everything as truthfully as we can, or as honestly as it is. And thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Take care.